Well, this morning I'm going to conclude the little message series that we've been in for the past few weeks, really for about a month, on being positive in a negative world, being positive Christians in a negative world. And you may recall the first couple messages, I referenced a conference speaker that had talked about there being two kinds of people. One kind were radiators. These were people who just when they, wherever they were, they just radiated good stuff, goodness, kindness, just positive aura about them just by the virtue of their attitudes. And we've all hung around people like that. They're good people to be around. The other kind were what the conference speaker called drains. These are just people that just simply take all the oxygen out of the room and just have a negative spirit about them, a critical spirit about them, and just all of that, and it just drains the energy and all of the goodness that might be within people just kind of away. So we talked about, are you going to be a radiator or are you going to be a drain? And about the attitudes that we choose to have. And just to remind us again, attitudes are a choice. Attitudes are not based on feelings, because feelings come and go. Attitudes are a choice. So attitudes are based on who God is, what God says, how God acts. Well, yesterday I saw this whole radiator drain thing come into play. Kathy and I took the better part of yesterday to go on the Floyd County Home and Garden Tour. Our son David was begging to go with us. Begging to go with us. I said, no, David, you have to stay at home today. You can't do the Floyd County Home and Garden Tour. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. But anyway, it was a beautiful day yesterday, so we drive up, we get our ticket, and anyway, as a part of the ticket, you had a boxed lunch at the Floyd Arts Center. And this was, the Home and Garden Tour was a fundraising event for the Floyd Arts Center. And so you were not only seeing good stuff, but you were helping a good organization. So anyway, Candy and I got a couple homes, and we decided, okay, we'll cycle back to Floyd and have our boxed lunch and then finish up the remaining homes and on back to Roanoke. So anyway, we're in there eating our boxed lunch. And the lunch was from 11:30 to 1:30, and we probably got there about 10 after 1. So most of the people had come and gone that were doing the lunch thing. And so anyway, went with just a few of us at that kind of later time in there eating. And anyway, there were a group of ladies that were volunteers. And their job that day had been to take care of getting the boxed lunches out and welcoming people as they came to the Floyd Arts Center and thanking everybody for supporting the Home and Garden Tour and all that kind of stuff. They were radiators. They were radiators, right? Smiling, warmth, thanks for being here, hope you're having a good day, hope you're enjoying the homes that we've selected this year, and so on and so forth. So they're radiators. Well, when Kathy and I showed up at 10 after 1, one of the ladies said to us, said, we are so sorry. Said we had chicken salad sandwiches and pimento cheese sandwiches, and you could have your choice, but we've run out of chicken salad. So all we have left is pimento cheese sandwich. Fine, whatever. It's all good. It's all good, right? Radiating, right? It's all good. So they're sitting there, these volunteers, now they're having their lunch. And so one of the ladies begins to share with the other three. She said, you should have been here 10 minutes ago. She said, these two women came in. We will refer to them as drains. These two women came in, and she said, I greeted them and thanked them for being here and so on and so forth. And then I explained to them that we no longer had chicken salad. All we had was pimento cheese sandwiches. And she said, these two ladies opened up their boxed lunches, pulled out the pimento cheese, and said, well, we don't like pimento cheese, and threw the sandwiches in the trash can in front of the volunteer. Now, unless it was a kindergarten group that came in, these were adults. Who acts like that? Well, sadly, some people did. Some people did. So here in the midst of radiators, 2 drains walked in. Well, now I'm kind of a little, I'm kind of gravitating to this conversation that's going on at the table right beside where Kathy and I are eating. And so then, the lady that's telling this story is asked by one of the other volunteers. She said, well, what did you say? And she said, well, I didn't say anything, but there were some things that I was thinking I should say. And then the woman who asked the question said, oh, I know what you mean. She goes, there are plenty of times when I want to say things, but I'm not quick on my feet like that. So what had happened is, 2 drains walked in, encountered some radiators, and by the time those 2 drains left, the radiators were now drains themselves. See what I'm saying? So I decided, okay, I'm going to try and be a radiator. So before I left, I went over to the lady that had encountered the 2 drains. And I said, well, look, we're having a great day. It's a great tour. And I want you to know I absolutely loved my pimento cheese sandwich. She smiled. She thanked me. We headed out. Now, but I'm going to wager that when that lady went home, later that afternoon, she didn't remember my compliment. What's she going to take away from that day? The 2 drains. It is so critical. It is so critical that you and I choose rightly the attitudes we have and the attitudes we bring, because it's powerful. Being a drain is a powerful, powerful thing. Being a radiator is a blessing. So as we kind of wrap it up this morning, I really do want us to be intentional about the attitudes we choose to have. These attitudes of being grateful, being encouraging, being enthusiastic, being confident. And this morning we're going to think about being generous. As we think about being generous, I want to say this right up front. I want to talk about generosity this morning that has absolutely nothing to do with money. Has absolutely nothing to do with money. Because so many times when you and I think about generosity, what we think about, what our mind immediately goes to is, okay, I need to stroke a check. I want us to think about generosity in a larger, broader, deeper context. Okay? So this isn't going to be a message about money, but it is going to be a message about being generous. Now that you've heard that, you can exhale, you can smile warmly in my direction, and all is good. All is good. Paul writes this. Now, Paul is writing about sharing your treasure, but he's really getting to a much deeper point. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, Paul says to the church of Corinth, he says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever is generous, whoever sows generously, will also reap generously. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful, and that word actually translates hilarious. God loves a hilarious giver. God loves a person who is just overjoyed with generosity. With generosity. Proverbs 22:9 says, a generous person will himself be blessed. And then here is the greatest scriptural reference to generosity in all of the Bible. It is the most generous statement John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. Whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. It's the greatest statement of that generosity in all of Scripture, because it is God who is ultimately generous, giving to us the most generous gift that could be given. And so this morning, with that kind of as a spiritual context, I want us again to think about generosity, but I'm not going to talk about, we're not going to associate it with money. Because I want to talk about much more important things that you and I need to be generous about. And we begin with this, that when you and I are generous, when you and I give, that is when we are most like God. When we look at John 3:16, the active main verb in that statement, even as it's written in the Greek, is not love, but it is gave. That God, because he loved us, then demonstrated that, acted on that, and gave from that his one and only Son to you and to me. Because oftentimes, for something to have true meaning and value, it must be given. It must be demonstrated. It must be shared. Think about what the Apostle James wrote in the New Testament. He said, faith that is not, and I'm kind of transliterating here, faith that is not demonstrated, faith that is not shared, faith that is not given, is deceased. And so for something to have value and meaning, it must be given, it must be shared. And that is really at the heart of what is happening here in John 3:16 in that particular statement. That because God loved us, he did something out of that. He gave. He gave. It is the ultimate statement of generosity. So I want us to think about this morning, how can you and I be generous in things that have nothing to do with money, but are so much more important? How about if we were to choose to be generous in kindness, generous in love, generous in praise, generous in grace? Because you see, if you and I choose to be generous in those lists, in those things, and the list could be much longer, what a powerful impact that would have on those around us and on ourselves. Because as you and I do that, as we are generous in those things and more, we then ultimately become blessed ourselves. It's a pretty powerful biblical principle. And so that's what we're talking about when it needs to be generous. You know, all of us are mastered. The only question is by what or whom. I want to say this to you this morning. If your life, my life, is all about us, we'll never be generous. Because generosity involves giving away without obligation that which belongs to you. And so if you and I, if our lives are all about us, we'll never know the blessing that comes with being generous. We'll never know what it is to sow generously and reap generously. And so generosity is really about what is at the core, the center of your life. Generosity is not about amount, but it is about the heart. Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, "For where your treasure is, there your heart is also." Treasure there is not treasury, by the way. Treasure means anything that you hold tightly, anything that you basically grip. That will be an indicator of what it is that is at the center and at top priority in your life. And when you and I look at Jesus Christ, we see the ultimate in generosity. Let me give you a few examples. And hopefully this will speak to us about how you and I can choose to be generous to other people. Again, in things that have nothing to do with writing a check. When Jesus encountered the woman at the well, Jesus was was generous in his time. Jesus was generous in his kindness. Jesus was generous in his respect. Jesus was generous in his grace. And because of all of that generosity, this woman's life is completely changed, that she runs back to her town telling everybody about this individual that she had met. When Jesus is walking along and there are crowds around him, everybody's kind of, following Jesus and wondering what he's going to do next, what kind of miracle he's going to perform, what's he going to say, and he sees Zacchaeus up a tree. Everybody knows who Zacchaeus is in that town. Everybody knows. He's got a reputation. And it's not good. And you can imagine everybody standing around and they're going, oh, he's seen Zacchaeus. Everybody kind of leans in, like me at the Poet Art Center yesterday, leaning in. What's Jesus going to say? Oh, Jesus is going to let him have it. What's Jesus say? He says, he looks at Zacchaeus, he says, come down out of that tree. I want to have dinner with you. That's generosity. That's being generous. When Jesus takes a towel that has been wrapped around him and stoops to wash his disciples' feet, that's generosity. Where Jesus says, I want to tell you something, I want to tell you a secret. It's countercultural. You'll never learn this in the world. And I can hear it out there. But let me let you know a little secret. You want to know what life is? Serve. Stoop. Be about others. That's generosity. And then when Jesus Christ hung upon a cross and gave himself sacrificially and unconditionally for you and for me, that's generosity. We have no greater example of what it means to be generous, what it means to be a person who gives oneself away abundantly, graciously, and unconditionally than in the person of Jesus Christ. That's what I'm talking about for you and for me. That's what it means to be generous. To be generous to people that are around you with praise. To be generous to people around you who may have messed up. Maybe they did things that you don't approve of, but you're going to be generous in grace. Be generous in love. Be generous in kindness. Be generous in gentleness. Be generous in all of those things that emanate because the Spirit of God is within you. That's what it means to be generous. And it has nothing to do with an amount. It has everything to do with the heart. And let me, while we're kind of on that point, make this statement. What you cannot release, you do not hold. It holds you. What you cannot release, you do not hold. It holds you. If you cannot be generous in forgiveness, you do not hold bitterness. Bitterness holds you. If you cannot be generous in love, judgmentalism you do not hold, but it holds you. You with me? If you cannot be generous with the things you have, you do not have possessions. Possessions have you. What you cannot release, you do not hold. It holds you. So this whole attitude of choosing to be generous. Finally, our legacies will ultimately be determined by what we've sown. Not what we've known and not what we own. Our legacies will be determined by what we've sown. Not what we've known and not what we own. It's what you have given away of yourself to other people that will ultimately be your legacy. I want to close with two quick illustrations that to me just kind of get right at this. There's a lady by the name of Geraldine Brooks. She goes by Jerry, and she tells this wonderful story that when she was a kid growing up, when she became school age, starting kindergarten, she had to go and after school stay with her granddad until her parents got off work and they'd go by granddad's house and pick her up. Well, her grandfather was a widower, and she said he didn't have any toys. There was no kids' stuff at her granddad's house. And so she said, for the first few weeks it was really boring. She's kind of like, I got to wait. There's just nothing to do. She's going to be there for 2 or 3 hours till mom and dad came, and he did his best, but they just didn't have anything. She said, finally, said, one afternoon I go to Granddad's house, and he's got two kids' books, two children's books. And she said, he called me, and called me up, get on his lap, and she said, he read these two children's books to me, and she said, it was awesome. It was just great. She said, I love those books. And she said, all week, every day, same two books, we'd read those books. And she said, as soon as I would hit that door, she said, I'd look at Granddad, I said, read me those books, read me those books, I want to hear those stories. And so that's what they would do. And she said, and then the next week, a few more books showed up. And the week after that, a few more books showed up. And she said, before long, after a few months, she said, my grandfather had a whole shelf full of books. And she said, it was just great because I would go after school and he'd say, now you go over and pick out what books you want me to read. And she said, I'd go over there and I'd pick out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and he would read them to me. And then as I began to read, I could read them to him. And she said, we just that was kind of our thing. And she said, I loved it. I loved it. Because she said, those stories just took me to a different place. Just opened up my imagination. And she said, I love the illustrations, I just love the stories, I just love like going into a little different world with all of these characters. And she said, I just ate it up. And she said, rather than thinking, oh, no, I gotta go to Granddad's house. She goes, I was excited to go to Granddad's house. She goes, now I didn't learn until years later. Did not learn until years later. Where my granddad was giving these children's books. She said, but I found out what had happened. She said, my granddad had told the neighbor down the street that he was keeping his granddaughter and that he knew she was bored because he didn't have a lot of stuff there at the house for kids. And so it was a lady by the name of Mrs. Ashley. And so Mrs. Ashley began to give him children's books. Didn't know where they were coming from Mrs. Ashley. She was buying them at little book sales and yard sales and that, but she was feeding him a steady pipeline of these children's books. And she said it made a complete difference in my after-school hours with Granddad. But she said more importantly, and Miss Ashley never knew this, it made a difference in my life. The reason I know that story is because Geraldine Brooks told that story in 2006 when she gave her speech for receiving the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. And she says it was those books that Miss Ashley down the street had been giving my grandfather that he was reading to me that opened up my mind to imagination and creativity and ultimately gave focus to what I wanted to do in trying to replicate that launched her as a writer. She said, Miss Ashley passed away before I ever knew her. But she said, if Mrs. Ashley had been here today, while she was giving her Pulitzer Prize acceptance speech, she said, I would dedicate this Pulitzer Prize to her. Small thing, but powerful impact. That's just the power of generosity. That's just the power of generosity. I want to close with one other illustration. And I love this story. It was shared some time ago by a young man who had signed up for the Peace Corps. And anyway, he tells this story that when he was in the Peace Corps, that he was sent to teach school. And he was sent to teach English. And he said, I was in a very kind of impoverished, it'd been an area that had been devastated by war and all kinds of just bad things. And he said, here I was in this little school with a dirt floor, and he said, we were just in the middle of nowhere. It was somewhere in Africa. He said, just in the middle of nowhere. But he said, that's where I was going to be for 2 years while I was with the Peace Corps. And he said that I had grown up at the beach. And so he said, periodically I tell my students, about 30 or 40 kids, he said, I tell the students this little school about the beach. And, how I'd grown up at the beach, how I loved the beach, how I missed the ocean because I, couldn't see it, and, so on and so forth. He said, I just tell them about this, and they, all ultimately curious and all that kind of thing. And he said, so they became pretty well acquainted with my affinity for the beach. He said, we went on break for 2 weeks. And he said, I was at this, in this village and really didn't have anywhere to go or much I could do. And so he said, one day, about halfway through the 2-week break, he said, He said this little kid had been in my class, and his dad came to the door. He said, I live in a little two-room kind of building. And he said they came to the door, and he said, there they stood, beaming. This is the blessing you see of generosity. You're going to get more out of it than anybody else will. He said, there they were standing there, they had this baskets full of seashells. Full of seashells. And he said this village was 170 miles from the coast. 170 miles from the coast. He said this village had no mode of transportation other than just walking. And so they, said that they had heard how much he enjoyed the ocean, enjoyed the beach, missed it, being where he was, teaching at this school.